So I'm using my son's profile to present. So that's who Josiah is, y'all. So quick intro. Hey, I'm Jacque Dixon. I'm glad to be here with y'all. I use she, her pronouns. I've taught at quite a few Portland public schools throughout the past few years. Marshall, Roosevelt, and now I work with DART programs and do a lot of work with poets as well outside of the schools. And my favorite thing about poetry is that it's kind of it's like cathartic, I don't know, like therapeutic for me and a lot of folks that I know. So I appreciate that. I feel better after I write, and it's like a way for me to express myself. So Jolly, you want to share it, and then we're going to ask everyone who's here to at least do a quick intro.
Yeah. My name is Jolly Rapper. That's rapper with a W. My pronouns are he, him, and my school, I went to Jefferson High School, and then now I'm at PCC, and it's pretty cool. And my favorite thing about poetry is like just how it's like not just poetry, there's like a whole community, and it's like a culture, and it's like there's so much ways to connect people, and there's so much people that met through poetry and like telling stories and exchanging so much. I feel like it's very collaborative, and yeah.
And real quick, what did you say your pronouns?
Yes, he, him.
Okay, thanks. Can one of our guests jump in if you're available sound wise, like Emma or Lily?
Yeah, my name's Emma. She, her pronouns. I go to Wilson now, Ida Wells High School. And I guess my favorite thing with poetry, I don't like sit down to write poetry. I'll just randomly like start coming up with something and then start writing it down. And honestly, it's not usually poetry, it's like songs. Like it's music, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this is to kind of like try to figure out how to turn a song into a beat poem, because it's like sometimes it works without music and sometimes it doesn't. So yeah, but it's just fun, like, because I feel like if I didn't write it down, it would be lost because I can't remember it after like 5 minutes, and then it's lost forever. So like I should just write it down. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. That's awesome. I bet Jolly and I have a lot in common with you in that way. Like we also write songs that sometimes turn to poems, sometimes don't. Been there. All right. Lily, you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Lily. I use she, her pronouns. I'm from Franklin High School, and I guess there's not really one favorite thing that I have about poetry, and that's one of my favorite things.
Awesome. Emily. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Emily. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the director of youth programs at Literary Arts, but I've taught at different high schools and middle schools around Portland, like Madison, Benson, and Gresham. And I think one of my favorite things about poetry, I mean, just personally, it was my entry to writing, even though it's not the genre that I write in currently or the format that I write in currently. I really liked Tupac growing up and found a lot of connection to just like being proud of like my identity. And when I was in middle school, got his book of poems, The Rose That Grew from Concrete. And that was really powerful for me at that age. So I just like a lot of things about poetry also, like Lily said.
Thanks. I love that book. That is definitely one of my favorites to pull from in class. So I would definitely recommend it to Lily and Emma if you haven't had a chance to read it. It's got some gems.
Is
so,
where he like handwrite his poems. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
there's like scanned pages from his handwriting too, and he wrote them and stuff. It's
That's
cool.
so cool to just have. How like
Mhm.
imagine how much the original one of that is worth. Just probably in a museum somewhere.
Right, right. So I know, Jolly, you wanted to share a poem, and I can't remember where we decided we were going to do that, but I feel like it right now, if you're up for it, it would be a nice way to kick things off.
Okay.
Cool.
Perfect. I'll get into this. My name is Jolly Rapper. That's rapper with a W. And I'm going to share a poem that I wrote a while ago, but I feel like it's really cool and it has good context of what's going on in the world right now, especially this past summer. The beginning is going to be kind of like a written part that I'm reading. And then, yeah. Should I get into this? Let's see. Okay. Can you hear me? As a kid, I was into art, but I could never draw a perfect line. My hands were just too unsteady. Eventually, I got decent at drawing lines, gliding the pencil tip across the page ever so gently. I never knew what to draw, so I would always end up drawing lines. My hands just did what my mind was expressing. I figured out that every line I drew were just words, words I were suppressing. So I forced myself to stop drawing lines, but I couldn't help but question. Were the imperfect lines I refused to draw my only sense of acceptance, sense of protection, sense of direction, sense of a sensible sentence, my only sense of perfection? If I continued to fight this feeling of drawing lines, if I neglected, would that only cause me to make more lines in any form or substance? From soft graphite to gloopy ink to dripping paint on canvas. From bleeding sharpies to waxy crayons to grinding chalk in classes. From smudging charcoal to sculpting clay to stitching lines in fabrics. So many ways to create lines, I needed all the practice. Wait, wait. You know what I just realized? Lines are everything. I know it might sound weird, but hear me out. Lines dictate our lives. How? When you leave to the store, you follow Google Maps that is following a line. Palm readers read the what on your hands? The lines. An officer checks to see if you're tipsy by having you walk in a straight line. That same police officer shot and killed an innocent, unarmed black kid who was walking home from school. When the detectives arrived, they traced his cold, lifeless, limp body in a line of chalk. Society is teaching black kids to become tightrope walkers. Because if you walk these streets, you're walking a fine line, and there's no safety net that'll break your fall. And that ain't a problem. Because the only way you'll fall is if they're caught slipping. They'll be grinning with pride. The trigger is lit in their eyes. They pull it, gripping it tight. You'll get hit from behind or hit from the side, and the officer will say something along the lines of, "These things happen in this line of duty." But don't give us that line. Even poets with fire lines can't avoid their line of fire. And who's to blame? Who's behind the line? It can't possibly be the schools, because the schools, they listen. The schools are gifted. The schools are dripping. The schools are dripping. Perhaps it's the leak in the school to prison pipeline. And to all the people who hate when I write poetry, you're ugly. You say my lines are borderline offensive. Well, I'm bored of lines defending the true culprit behind the weapon. in full disguise, pretending like each bullet strike is not plainly pointed towards the opposing side's direction. Us as in the U.S.Y., us, why is America, blinded by the giant shadow casted by their ego. We put up so many lines between each other, putting society in a box. Let's take those same lines and use them as a way to connect the dots. We as human beings are approaching the end of our time. So where do we draw the line?
That's what's up. Mic drop. All right. Applause. I see some love in the chat. Feel free to show some love in the chat.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much. Thanks for sharing that. Part of the reason I wanted y'all to see Jolly share a piece is because he's got a lot of experience, right? And a lot of experience performing. And I think being able to see that poem from when it first started as just like a few ideas to like producing it and like watching Jolly add pieces, bits and pieces here and there and choreography and eventually pulling in other team members for that poem as well. It was just really beautiful to see the progress. And that's kind of like the goal with this workshop, is just to help you guys move from, okay, I've got this piece of work, like how do I get it performance ready, right? And how do I do that in a digital world? So, thanks, Jolly. I see we have another person who joined us too. And so I just wanted to say hi. And we did a quick intro before you got here. So I'm wondering if you want to introduce yourself. We kind of all introduced each other just with name, pronouns, school, and maybe something you love about poetry.
Hi, my name is Yana Masat, and yeah, I just wanted to see what this was about. Pronouns,
cool.
She, her.
Okay, thanks, Yana. All right, and I'm seeing more love in the chat. Welcome. Oh, and thanks for the reminder that we are being recorded. So hopefully other folks can use this as well. And I see Emma. Dang, that was really cool. All those little pieces that you pieced together, Jolly. And we can talk about that too. Like, what are ways that we can bring together different ideas in a piece so that it's fluid, right? Or connected. So Jolly, I'll go back to sharing my screen over here. And is there anything you want to tell us about that process for you and what it was like?
I guess I can. Like when I first started that poem, it was just the idea, and I remember I was telling people the idea, and they were like looking at me like I was dumb. Like, lines, like that's such a big thing. Like, how can you make a poem about just lines? And I was like, I don't know, but I'm making all these connections with lines, and I just had like a whole list of just lines that I've seen in society and how they're used, and that's all I had. And then, like, slowly but surely, I started forming them together and connecting them, and then I had this body of work. And then, like, I don't know, it's just fun to like take such a simple thing and make it into this huge concept. My favorite kind of poetry is like concept poetry, like metaphors and like bigger pictures. It's really fun.
Right on. Okay, so I'm gonna share this. See, there we go. We went through our welcome, and I guess we're walking into this assuming, because it's 2 days from the deadline, that y'all have something that you're working with right now. So please do ask questions. If you have questions that we're not covering or things that come up, please drop them in the chat, and we want to prioritize those questions. So you're not interrupting. We're totally down to go with the flow and meet your needs. We did want to start off talking, assuming that you've got a piece to work with, a little bit about memorization. Welcome. Do these have to be in a beat poem style? No, not necessarily. No, it's totally freeform.
Oh, cool. Thank you. Sorry.
No problem. And for the person that just joined us, if you want to do a quick intro, like with your name and pronouns, that would be great. I just want to make sure we can all say each other's names how we're supposed to say them. Thanks.
Yeah, my name's Khalil. I'm in 8th grade and at Tubman Middle School.
Cool. Welcome, Khalil. Thanks for joining us. All right. And I hope you're a part of Slam Boo. If not, we got to talk later. You got to join Slam Boo. So we were going to get into some memorization tips, and Jolly and I were just talking back and forth. And feel free to unmute Jolly so we could just kind of have convo about what has worked really well for him and for other poets that I've worked with. And one of those things that I know has worked really well for me was chunking. And so what I mean by that is when you write a poem, assuming your slam poem's between like 2 and 3 minutes, sometimes what happens is you'll have like the first part memorized and then forget the second part. Oh yeah, lots of Slam Boo love. Yeah. Love me some Slam Boo. And Mr. Chu, he's awesome. So with chunking, what you do is you kind of focus on one different part of the poem at a time. Working with lots of poets throughout the years and like with the Brave New Voices team for Portland, which Jolly's been a part of for a few years, what we noticed is like folks would have like the beginning and the end of their poems memorized typically and then have trouble in the middle. So like sometimes that means that you literally just stop practicing that part of the poem and move on and come back to it later. That's one thing that's worked for me and lots of poets I've worked with. Jolly, do you want to talk about another thing off the list?
Sure, but another thing about chunking, I would say, is the use of rhymes are a good way to chunk it. Like if you're doing one rhyme, I like to rhyme because I'm a musician, rapper. Had to throw that out there. But like I would use rhymes and they would help me memorize it because the end of this rhyme will lead into the new rhyme, and I'll have 2 paragraphs, and it'll like help me transition well. And just going down the list, I see the next point is physically writing it down, which is great for memorization because like I type all my poems up just because I don't know, my handwriting is just messed up and like trash and I can't do it and it's hard to make changes. But once I do have it typed up, physically writing it down like multiple times, that really like ingrains it in your head and like you remember the words, how they are like next to each other. I don't know, it's like a psychological thing. And with
For
that,
real, it's like brain research, actually.
yeah.
Like you have to use a different part of your brain when you write something down. So it's helping it go into your long-term memory. Absolutely right.
Exactly. And I don't know, I had this library teacher or librarian, but library teacher. I had this librarian that would always, she could never get people's names down. So she would always be like, can I write it? How do you write it? And then she would always just, that's how I figured it out. Like, oh, that's how she memorizes things. So I did that with poetry and songs. But along with that is recording like audio playback. So I would record it on my phone, like the audio of me performing it or reading it or whatever. And once I have it, I'll like press play and like try to say it at the same time. Like try to say it off the top with the audio playing. It'll be like, because if I mess up, I'll hear the audio version of me keep going, and I'll be like, oh, that's where I messed up. So I'll go back and just keep doing that. And it's good to just hear it, because you get so used to saying it and hearing it from yourself that it's like different when you hear it and you're not saying it. I don't know if that makes sense. But yeah, that also helps.
Yeah, and it totally utilizes a different part of your brain as well, right? So like some of us are visual learners, some of us are audio learners. I tend to learn a lot auditory wise, like when I hear other people say things. When I'm tired, I need to see it. So I'm more of a visual learner, like when my brain's kind of not fully there, right? But like when I hear things, it just stores differently. So I'm able to recall it differently. One of the advantages y'all have this year with Virtualandia, in my opinion, is that at least for this first round, you can record yourself making your video as many times as you need to. I want to warn you, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Don't sweat it. Don't, I know we all have a tendency to lean sometimes towards perfectionism with video, but especially in the social media world we live in, right? But you can redo it if you need to for first round. I also saw Emily drop in the chat that you don't need to memorize it. That's a really good point. So please do submit still. Like if it's not memorized, it's not the end of the world. It's more like, before the actual competition, you want to try your best to have the majority of it memorized. So it feels natural. We'll do a little activity in a little bit where we kind of practice saying things with different emotions. And I think when you memorize, that's part of the beauty of it, is that you're able to really say things full out. Like you're not reading it at all. You know what emotion you're trying to connect to with those words. Which also brings us to gestures or choreography. So you saw Jolly do a little bit of choreography during his routine, right? We'll watch a video in a little while as well that has some choreography.
Yeah, we're gonna watch a video that has choreography in a little bit. That's actually the next slide. And I feel like when you do gestures and choreography that's incorporated in your poem, that's also a good way to remember it. Because if you're doing a motion, that's like you remember what words accompany after that motion. And that's when I figured that out, I was like late in the game when I figured that out. And it like helped me memorize everything, because it's all transition. Everything is just what transitions into what and what follows what. And with gestures, it's like perfect. And I don't know if she wanted to watch the video after that or go on to the next paragraph, but I can't control that right now. So we're just gonna go to the next paragraph. What if I forget my line? And for those of you who were in here in the beginning when I performed my poem, not gonna lie, I messed up like 3 times, but you probably didn't realize it because I carried it through. And a good trick to get over the messing. Hold on.
Oh yeah, that was a question from Khalil. Yeah, for Virtualandia this year, it is still for it's actually not just PPS, but PPS is eligible as well as some other high schools in Gresham, Park Rose, Reynolds. Basically anyone who has ever participated in Verselandia or Eastside Slam. And you could still submit for fun if you want, and we can put it on our YouTube. We're gonna put the submissions, if people give permission, on our YouTube channel. So if you want to submit and practice for next year, we'd love to have you join next year.
Yeah.
I won't be going to a PPS high school next year. Is there any way I can still enter next year?
I'm hoping so. Yeah, I'll send you an email, and we can keep in touch. And would love to hear where you're going, and I'm hoping that actually the competition will continue to expand and be more inclusive of, Portland metro area. So hopefully by next year.
Okay, thank you. Because I love poetry, and there's also no way I'm missing out on a $1,000 Visa gift card. So
For sure. Well, we'll let you know by next year, for sure.
okay.
Yeah, that reminds me. Just on a side note, how many people have applied so far?
So far there have been 15 applicants, so pretty good chances right now to keep on, go on. Yeah. So please submit.
It was gonna be a lot more. Cool. I have some friends who were like, I don't want to join I don't want to do it because I'm afraid it'll be bad and there'll already be like 200 people, and I'm gonna tell them there's only 15 because
Yeah,
they'll also get a gift card, which is pretty cool.
exactly. Anyone who submits, you're at least gonna get a gift card, and if it doesn't get to 50, we'll make them a little higher. So, definitely just submit and try. And like, Jackie said and Jolly saying, just like, don't worry about perfectionism, just try. And that's all we can ask for.
Cool. Well, thank you. And it's due by like 11:59 on Wednesday, right? Like
Midnight. If he gets in a little bit after that, that's okay too. But definitely by the next morning, it'll be closed.
All right, that is awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right, sorry, Jolly, you were saying.
It's okay. I love how literary arts is expanding it and like making it bigger. Because when I first joined, it was very like strict and very narrow. Like you had to be at these schools, you had to do this, and you couldn't do that. And it's like now they're just growing. And it's funny because the iPad I'm using to join this call is the one I won like a couple years ago, and it was like really cool that yeah. But anyways, if you forget your line, you could pause and think about it. Because if you pause, that just gives it effect. It's like just makes it more dramatic. No one's gonna realize that you stopped and that you forgot it unless you pause for like a minute, which I've actually done a couple of times, and I still got away with it because I don't know. Like I said, it just gives it effect. And you could also repeat a line a lot of times, and like I said, it gives it effect. Like people don't know; they don't know what's happening in your head. And as long as you just keep saying it with confidence and like keep a straight face, like a big mistake that I see people do a lot is they'd be like, "Oh, I messed up," or they'd be like, "Oh man, hold on, let me go back," and that's where it's like, "Oh, you just blew your cover. Now everyone knows you messed up." But if you just don't say that, you'll be fine. You'll be safe. And then after that, it says freestyle topic / theme. Okay, this is it's very tricky to do, and it's like, but I've done it. It got me out of a lot of situations where I feel like I was messing up, or especially in competitions, I do this, where I'll have a line or I'll have a section that I can't remember it, so I'll make it up, and like I do this a lot, and maybe it's because I'm a rapper that I'm easy to like stay on my toes and just make up stuff on the spot. But I've done that, and it's a really good skill to have. So it might be hard to like do that, but if you just practice like thinking of, also you could borrow from other poems that you've done. I've I've won a competition. It's Slamlandia. I think it was at it was at Literary Arts' Slamlandia events, and the first time I won at the Slamlandia thing, I started a poem that I just wrote, and then I forgot it halfway through, and I didn't know how to finish it. So I paused, and I just took the ending half of another poem, and I just put it right there, and then it just worked. And then like it worked, and then I won, and I was like, wow, I'm surprised I won, and I was still under the time, so that was really cool. But if all else fails, and you can't do that, it's good to just have a backup, like in your pocket. You could keep the paper, like lyrics, or in your phone, just have it pulled up just in case you do mess up. You could like quickly just press Google Docs and it's like right there. Which happens a lot. People always forget their lyrics and they just read it, which is fine. Don't feel like you have to memorize it, or if you read it, it's like cheating or whatever. Like it's part of poetry, and it's a good thing to be prepared for. And yeah, Jackie, welcome back.
Thanks. Y'all, these technical difficulties. Thanks for keeping it going. It was weird because I could like see you on the one I was presenting on, but I didn't have any sound. So I was like, cool, they got it. Um, I think that repeat a line, you hit on it, but this is really common in slam poems anyways. So like it's pretty common for like a line that's essential, that's hitting on your theme, to be repeated over and over again through a slam poem anyways. So it's really not going to give it away if you forget a line on the way, to just drop it again. And sometimes that's also, it'll buy you enough time to have it come back to you. And I was there, I witnessed that when he won at Slamlandia. It was brilliant. For those of you who like to write songs too, it's pretty common for songwriters, I think, performance artists, like it's just kind of a skill improv that you build along the way too. Like we all forget lines. It's just your recovery is what counts. Like Jolly said, if you don't tell us, 9 times out of 10, we won't even know that you forgot a line. So the beauty of this being in virtual format too is you can't always just have it on your screen. The one thing I would recommend is make sure it's on your screen in front of you and not next to you. Like I've got this other screen here. I wouldn't want to be reading here and then looking at this camera, right? Because then it's clear that I'm reading. But if I'm reading it off the same screen, y'all can't really tell. So all right. Should we move on and do a little analysis of the video? I think that was kind of our next
Sure.
idea.
And in the video, this video, I think he actually does the repeat a line part. Like I'll try to point it out, but like you could kind of tell, and then he just keeps repeating it. Then he catches himself. But then again, I don't know, because that could just be his poem.
Absolutely, good point. So our idea here is like we want to take some of those things we talked about and take a look at this performance, and we just want y'all to reflect a little bit about like what works. So what's really solid about this performance? What are things that stand out to you? And do you recognize any of those tips like through this poem? Okay. And we're also going to look at the choreography or the body language with this. Okay.
We pledge allegiance to your flag of the United States of America and to your republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for who? For you, for some, not for us, not for our people. So please stop saying we equal with your flag of red, white, and blue in one hand. You beat us until we're black and blue with the other, beat us until we're none, beat us until we can't walk straight. Then you put us in chains if we lucky. But for the ones of us who aren't so lucky, you tell us to put our hands up as some type of sick tribute to your privilege, and then you pull the trigger until our bodies lay down on your ground, pull the trigger until your clip is empty, pull the trigger until we make your evening news, and then when our children cry, we have to look our children in the eyes and tell them that they have to be cautious, that when they walk your streets, they have to do so in fear, that they have to spend an entirety of their life looking over their shoulder, because you will hunt them down and you will bury them, either in a prison system that aims to disenfranchise them or the dirt beneath their feet. And this is all because of that same racism that you love to say no longer exists. But we all know that same racism is the reason that when we want to put a hood on, we resist. The reason that when we go to get these jobs, we're dismissed at the door. The reason that when we go to shop, we're watched in your stores. That racism is the reason that us saying your Pledge of Allegiance feels a lot like a root canal, or a whip's impact against our flesh, or a baton to our head, or a bullet in our back, or tear gas at a Black Lives Matter protest. That racism is the reason that 3 women clenched their purses as I walked through the entrance of this very building. It hurts that I have to remember that the system I was born into was built to work against me. Hurts that I have to remember. Hurts that I have to remember. Hurts that I have to. Hurts that I actually have to remember that you will happily invest more money into the preservation of wildlife than you ever will into the preservation of black life. Let me ask y'all a question. When y'all turn on your TVs and witness another black body laid out on your concrete, what do y'all see? Another murder? Another sad story? Another funeral? Do you see the aftermath? I see another child that lost their father, another single woman trying to raise a man, another broken home which leads to another child that grows up and suffers the same fate as their father, which means another black woman that outlives her adolescent son. This country practices a culture that lacks equal rights for blacks, and we love to say that black don't crack. Meanwhile, y'all shatter our melanin like glass. My back breaks for everybody you lay at our feet, for every memory I try to erase within your war zones. Late nights reveal that my PTSD has found its way to the surface. And my hate for this country reminds me that I'm far from patriotic, so it's a little ironic that I pledge allegiance to your flag of the United States of America and to your republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for who?
Ooh. But you saw when he was like, it hurts that I have to remember. It hurts that I have to remember. And like, I'll say he forgot it right there. But then he totally recovered and then he did it well. It was good.
Absolutely. What are some other things that just stood out to y'all about this poem? Like what was solid about the performance? And feel free to just unmute yourself or use the chat however you prefer to communicate.
I like the emotion put into it and how and like it's a subject that'll get to everyone, like no matter like what way it like does, it'll hit everyone, and it just is really impactful. And I like how he used the flag as like to kind of like start an end, and then he went into like I think the composition of it was really great too. So yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Khalil. Absolutely. We definitely felt his emotion throughout that. What were some of the emotions that y'all could identify? Like if you had to name them throughout the piece, based off the tone, based off of the body language, all of it. Like what were some of the emotions or tones?
Well, I know for me, some of it was it's kind of hard. Some of it was like fear and I mean just like for like not necessarily like my life, but people around me, and it kind of just makes you take a step into reality. I mean, some I mean the fact that I have this technology to get on this call already says something. So like I know that this can I mean it just will hit a lot of different cultures differently. Like people of color, it'll feel well, I can't really speak to people of color, but I don't know, it's hard to put in words.
I hear you. Thank you. I feel what you're saying, like based off of our experiences and our own racial and cultural backgrounds, we might have like different reactions to it, or we might even interpret it, the emotion or the tone differently. Absolutely. Um, I think towards the beginning, one of the emotions or the tones that kind of stood out to me was like, I don't know if I would call it like fear or distrust, um, disbelief.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say that is like a disbelieving rage. Like he couldn't, like he was kind of laughing. And then actually at one moment, I don't know if did he actually start crying? It seemed like he honestly started when he maybe it was when he forgot the line. It was either that he forgot the line that was why he was repeating it over and over again, or I thought maybe he was actually crying, and then he paused and then repeated it a third time. Because you could definitely feel that rage and sadness and like laughing because it just the disbelieving kind of like calling out of the truth that he's speaking.
Yeah, absolutely. Like where his voice cracked, it was really clear. Yeah, that he was upset and kind of in disbelief, like you were saying. And the word you chose too, rage. I think for me, when I interpret it, it definitely like builds, like the emotion builds and shifts through the poem. That's like how I interpret it. Um, so maybe at the beginning, his tone is a little softer than towards the end, as he tells his experiences and shares these things that are awful. You know, the different ways that he and others have encountered racism. Um, any other emotions or tones that y'all would identify here that you hear or see? Okay, so I think we're gonna move on, and so I think I'm gonna maybe stop the share just for a minute. I can get my computer to cooperate with me.
It was also interesting seeing him perform with a backpack on, because I've never seen that at BMV. That was at BMV, by the way. Youth Speaks puts on BMV, Brave New Voices. And it's also fun to just go watch those videos. So if you type in Brave New Voices, poetry, you could get lost. Like I spent hours just watching. There's so much content, and that's also another way to like perfect your stuff. Just watch other people, and it really gets you hype and in the mood and motivated and inspired to actually do it. And it's really cool.
Thanks, Yana.
Bye.
Bye. I absolutely second what Jolly was saying. Like, I think I've been lost in the BNV video world as well. There's a couple solid ones too, like Button Poetry, right, or other groups. But watching their performances is also a good way to just get tips in general for like what works. Um, with emotion, there's an activity sometimes that I've done with poets where what I'm going to ask y'all to do is just drop a line from one of your favorite songs in the chat. And I see also that Emily dropped a link for if you want one-on-one support to work on like a specific poem that we're going to be doing some one-on-ones tomorrow with I think Alex Dang, right, and Julia. They're both amazing poets. So if you want some one-on-one feedback, I highly recommend y'all sign up. But for this next activity, we're going to practice that emotion piece because worked with a lot of poets, and I feel like this is something that a lot of folks have a challenge with. Like, you have these really impactful, powerful words, but how do you say them or deliver them in a way that delivers that, like, that emotion or that meaning that you want? So I'm gonna just ask you, drop like a line from one or two songs um, in the chat, and we're gonna use those for this next activity. It could be any line or from a poem, or it could even just be a sentence or a phrase. It doesn't even have to be from a song. So I'm gonna start us off, and then y'all will see. I'm not gonna put anybody on the spot. We're all gonna do this together. So I'm thinking of, yes, it totally could be a line from something you've written. So absolutely. I'm thinking of that Alicia Keys song, This Girl Is on Fire, right? Um, and I wanted us to all, like, if y'all are comfortable with it, I would love to try for everybody to unmute. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna say that line, and I'm gonna give you an emotion, and you're gonna say it with that emotion, right? So, like, the first emotion that I would give would be like, you're in fear or you're scared. Like, how would you say this girl is on fire if you're in fear or scared, like someone was actually physically on fire? One, two, three. Hopefully we all unmute together on three. Three.
Wait, you're trying to say it like collaborative, like
Yeah.
together? Okay.
So, like, man, this girl is on fire. Like, oh my goodness, I'm scared. Like, what do I do? Give me a fire extinguisher, right? Like, this girl is on fire. Ah. Versus, like, thank you, Khalil. I see you're ready to participate. Emma and Lily and Emily, I hope y'all could. Okay.
I actually quieter because my mom's like on a call. So yeah, it might sound different than if I was, like yelling.
Thanks. That's super thoughtful of you. As a parent, I really appreciate that you're thinking of your mom on the call. I feel you. Okay, so what about if we are angry? This girl is on fire and we're angry about it. How would we say it together?
On fire.
Okay. One, two, three.
This girl's on fire.
Girl's on fire.
Just a second.
Okay.
Okay. Mad?
Yeah, you're angry.
Okay. Oh my gosh, mad is weird for me with that sentence.
It is.
I would put that together with that.
I got you.
Yeah.
Let's move on to maybe like powerful. Like, if you've actually heard the song, right? Like the emotion or the tone of, like, saying it with confidence. Like, how would you say that with confidence? Like, you are the person that is on fire, metaphorically. Like how she says it in the song. This girl is on fire, right? Like, all right, yeah. I'm gonna move on to one of your lines that y'all have dropped in the chat, because maybe my choice was just not the best for emotions. I thought we could get it together.
This girl's on fire.
I love that song. Okay, so I see Emma dropped.
These are some good one-liners.
Here we are another day, a passing of the sun. So I want y'all to say that. If everybody can unmute, and let's say it like we're bored. We're bored.
Here we like. Are we doing it now?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Here we are another day, a passing of the sun. That sounds kind of aggressive.
Yeah.
Here we are another day.
Okay, a passing of the sun.
Here we are another day. A passing of the sun.
Nice.
Here we are another day, passing of the sun.
Another day,
Nice.
passing.
All right.
Yeah.
Now we're excited about it. What about if we're excited?
Here we are another day, passing of the sun. I thought I did good.
Okay.
Here we are another day, passing. Oh my gosh, never mind.
You got it.
Wait,
You got it.
That's it. That feels like something that okay. Never mind.
Y'all, I gotta admit, it's interesting to try to take these. I really appreciate the participation here. And it's interesting to take these activities that we do in person where we could see each other's faces and everything and the reactions and the tone like in real time and put it into this digital format. So I totally understand if you need to keep your cameras off, but I think cameras on does help for this one probably just because we can, you know, if I was in Shakespeare, like Shakespearean tone, here we are another day, a passing of the sun versus, you know, bored like y'all did earlier. Here we are another day, a passing of the sun versus sad. Here we are another day, a passing of the sun, right? Like so much of slam poetry is in your tone and your performance. So that's the goal here, is just to emphasize that the way you say things is a lot in slam poetry. It's really important. Let's take Lily's line and maybe we could just pass it around. So like each person, I'm going to say your name and give you an emotion and then ask you to do it in that emotion. Okay. Or you can even identify your own emotion. If the one I give you, you're like, nah, I'm not feeling that. I want to say it like this. I'm cool with that. And no worries if you can't have your camera on, totally understand. No worries. So Lily's line, as long as I'm here, no one can hurt you. Lily, can you unmute and tell us how you would say that? In a protective way?
I'm sorry, can you come to me last?
Yes, no problem. So Emma, how would you say that if you were like in a meaningful, protective way?
Okay. As long as I am here, no one can hurt you.
Nice, I felt that. Khalil, how would you say that if you were scared? Like if you really didn't believe what you were saying, but you were trying to convince yourself?
As long as I'm here. Wait, sorry, I forgot the line. Okay. As long as I'm here, no one can hurt you.
Nice.
Bye,
Lily, thanks for joining us. All right, y'all.
She did not want to go.
Give us a line to work with, though, and I appreciate that. And I think, like I said, this is a challenge to do it in this digital world, especially like when sometimes I understand if we have to have cameras off or mics off. Totally makes sense when you're sharing your house with other people, and I get that. I encourage you to practice this type of activity like with your own poem. So like really think about the parts of your poem and like what do you want to emphasize in each section? Like what is the emotion? Identify it and make sure that it's coming through in your words that you're sharing.
What is that?
This is my design for my business card. It's me holding a microphone.
Okay, and I know we only have a couple minutes left, but I do want to just share this last slide with a couple performance tips that Jolly came up with.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go. And if you want to just run us through those, Jolly, I think this was specific to doing poetry in a digital world, so in this virtual format.
When I was writing this, I was thinking it would be live, but then it was like you get to submit a video, so you get to do it as many times as you can, which is great. So these things are still you should take into account when making your video. I'll just read them. Look at the camera. Avoid looking at the screen, because there's a difference. Like this, I'm looking at the camera right now, and then this, I'm reading the lyrics, and it's very different. It might be subtle, but I feel like when I'm looking at you, you can actually feel it. Make sure your audio is crisp and clear. Maybe take a couple videos. Try to maybe there's a part in your poem where you yell really loud, and you want it to be very clear, and you want it to, because sometimes the audio levels are very weird. But your phone should be good. But some people have elaborate setups, like me. I have this cool microphone. But it's good to have a clear audio. Audio sometimes is more important than visual, which is a cinematic thing I learned in my video class. Anyways, make sure you have good Wi-Fi connection. Otherwise, you're gonna pull a Jackie and just disconnect from whatever. But this is for a live performance. But you probably don't need Wi-Fi if you're just making a video on your phone. But who knows? It could help. Body framing. So, depending on your poem, you could do one sitting down and just being like this. But I like to stand. And you want to be centered like this. You don't want to be like this. Or over here. Or like this. Just be in frame. Be centered. Be nice. And lighting. Right now I have 2 lights right here. I guess I could show you. I have this light. No, where is it? I can't see it. Is it there? I can't even see. What am I looking at? Okay, and then I have this light. And then I have a backlight. But you don't really need a light like that. I'm just kind of being extra because, I don't know, I have OCD. So, yeah. But just perform in front of a window with good lighting, like daylight, or if you have a good lighting setup. I know lots of mirrors nowadays have a good light to do your makeup on or whatever.
And if you don't have any fancy lighting and your house has really poor lighting, that's okay. Maybe try to find a place outside. I guess you have to be more mindful of the noise, maybe depending where you're at, but outdoor lighting tends to work really well for video. If you could find just natural lighting, but not necessarily with the sun. I really struggle with lighting in my own home, so that's why I'm sharing this, because I know that can be hard sometimes. So natural lighting tends to work really well. We just want to see your face, basically, in the video.
Yeah, definitely. Lighting is pretty vital, but yeah, outside is good too. Plus, there might be some strangers walking by and they'll get a free poem out of it. Just kidding. But next on the list, finally, room setup. Y'all, you all probably have really clean rooms already, but if you're gonna like put the video camera on you and get the whole room set up, just tidy things up a little bit. Maybe like, I don't know, put a stuffed animal in the background just to be cool, and like do cool things like that, or like hide some things maybe people don't want to see. Do whatever. Do what you need to do. And then yeah.
Thanks, Jolly. Cool. I can admit too, my room's kind of messy. So if I was gonna shoot one in there, I definitely would have to like clean it up a little bit. I appreciate you mentioning that. I really encourage you guys to use the resources that Emily's dropping in the chat too. She's a wealth of information, has a lot of great stuff to share with you. So there's another link that could be a great resource. And if you want one-on-one feedback for your poems, I really encourage you to join those feedback sessions tomorrow. So before we go today, I do want to open it up. If we have any specific questions that you want us to address, like in the next 10 minutes or so, I've got about 10 minutes. And if not, it's all good.
No, oh, sorry. I guess nothing really super specific, just like, so it has to be 3 minutes long, has to be in by pretty much midnight tomorrow, and it has to be generally, like, it doesn't have to be like beat poet style, but, you know, like something that flows, like, you can't just, shouldn't be like iambic pentameter or something. And
to answer, like if that's a question, it does not have to be 3 minutes. So 3 minutes is like as long as you would want it. So you would be penalized, or like points would be taken away if it was more than 3 minutes and 10 seconds. But
yeah.
there's no length requirement. I would encourage you to aim for like at least 2 minutes, but like probably anywhere in between the 2 minute, 30 and 3 minute mark is what I would aim for. If it's too short, I don't know. It's better than nothing, but like I'd say at least 2 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's it. I really just have to work on my poem. I only have like a couple of lines, honestly. Okay, I had a poem and then I lost the notebook it was in. I can't find it. Like, so I remember some of them, but I just have to figure that out. But it's been really helpful. And
yeah, one more thing before you go, just want to clarify too. It's due basically midnight on Wednesday. So you actually have 2 more days. It's not due tomorrow night, it's due the night after that. And then just so you know too, what the first round of judging is on. I'm gonna mute you for a second, Jolly. It's kind of echoing, I think. There we go. Okay. Sorry. I think maybe, I don't know if anyone else heard that, but we're judging on just the writing itself, the performance style, and then just like the content of the work. And you know, the video recording of course has a little bit of an effect, but for most part it's just more about like, okay, what is written down and stuff. So just for you to also keep in mind. And yeah, like Jackie said, 3 minutes and 10 seconds is a grace period. So if it comes under that, that's okay too.
Cool. And is it kind of more judged on like the emotional content? Like if I wrote a poem about like dogs, is it more about like the language that you use and the kind of rhyming and like how good the writing is?
I mean, I think it depends on the person. Honestly, we have so many different judges. I think Jackie could also speak to some of her own experience as a judge, but I mean, you know, like Jolly said, his poem he performed is about lines, and it maybe sounds like a concept that on its own maybe isn't like super interesting, but like through his performance and the content, it becomes really interesting. And so I think that, you know, dogs as a topic could be amazing, you know, so it's hard to say for sure without hearing the poem, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah. And as a judge, to tell you the truth, sometimes, so slam poetry always, it tends to like focus on social justice topics, right? So we
Yeah.
think about like racism, sexism, any of the isms, police brutality, those types of concepts are kind of typical for slam poetry. And there's a lot of value to writing about those topics.
Yeah.
And there's no pressure to write specifically about those topics. Some of my favorite slam poems are funny. Some of my favorite slam poems are just like totally goofy. There's like this superhero one. There's another one I saw that's like they go through all these Soldier Boy songs, and it like the whole thing is humorous where they're like using Soldier Boy songs. It's an ode to Soldier Boy, and it's like totally goofy. One of my favorite poems I ever saw at BMB. So I would say just roll with whatever you're wanting to write about, because like if you want to write about it, it shows through your work.
Yeah.
So you could win a slam with a poem about dogs if it's like, heartfelt and what you feel like writing about and you really put in the work.
Sarah.
Like Emily said, every judge is going to kind of use their own rubric. The things in general that when I've been a judge before that we were encouraged to think about, I guess, is like the content. So are you using things like similes, metaphors, other tools for writing, right? The depth there. And then like your performance. So are you comfortable? Are you making eye contact? Are you projecting? Do you have most of it memorized? So I think about those things. It does not have to rhyme. Like some slam poems do, some don't. So I would say like go with whatever you feel confident with.
All right. Well, cool. Thank you. That's really helpful. I guess I just yeah. I heard about this year. I didn't know it was happening, and then like I found like a random email link on a school thing, and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then it was coming up, and then I was like, oh, this is due on Wednesday. I should probably go to at least one of these things. So, thank you guys. That was great.
Thanks. I encourage you to participate, like enter. Yeah, do it.
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, thank you. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Emma.
Yeah, thanks. Have a good day, guys.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, y'all.
We
Good.
did
We
it.
had people that showed up.